Morning everybody, how are y'all doing today? I'm doing great myself because you know what, I think my sickness is almost gone. You can probably still hear it in my voice, it's definitely not completely gone yet. But last night I slept for 13 hours and woke up feeling much better. And you know what, at least my nose is working properly again, which is very important when you're trying to do some salt, which I have luckily prepared for all of you today. And since my last Tears of the Kingdom video did unfathomably well, like 24,000 views in like the first day or something, which by the way, thank you guys all so much for that. I figured, wow, people really like this. I'm gonna do some more. And I said this on my last video, but I'm gonna say it again. I do not care if this guy is a troll or not. I make these videos because they're fun to make. If I see a single comment saying that I got trolled on this video, your gamer license will be revoked. That's right, people, we're going full King Thrash. You're not an S tier gamer like me. I'm sorry about that, but anyway, without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into this.
Hello, welcome back to a new video. So recently I've been playing the brand new Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, and as an avid fan of Zelda games and JRPGs in general, I knew I just had to play this game. Unfortunately, so far it's kind of been bland, boring, uninspiring, and sort of lacking in luster. So as you can see, I have the game loaded up on my Switch OLED, just in case you thought I didn't actually play it yet. I am actually playing it, so you can see.
Well, you know what? I do have to give this guy props for actually showing that he did play the game. But there is one problem, though. I haven't played this game myself, but even I know that he is still in the tutorial area. He's got a naked Link and only 3 hearts. So, yeah, you have played the game, I guess. But you certainly haven't played a whole lot of it. Then again, if this guy just played the tutorial and then quit, I can understand why he would think the game would be a little boring. However, that doesn't really feel like he's giving the game a fair shot. Is anybody else getting vibes of when that games journalist couldn't beat the tutorial in Cuphead? Because I know I sure am.
So I've been playing the game for pretty much all day now, and as of right now, I can't really recommend the game.
Okay, sorry to pause again so soon, but my guy, you're still in the tutorial and you're saying you've played the game all day? Unless you're doing some no armor, no weapons, no extra health challenge, I have to call cap.
And I feel kind of disappointed with my purchase. Now, when the first game, Zelda Breath of the Wild, came out almost 6 years ago back in 2017, I played that too and finished it, and at the time, it was a really good game. At the time, it was kind of amazing that you could play a game that looked that good and played that well on a handheld device, and I was really blown away with the gameplay and the graphics. But fast forward 6 years later, in 2023, with the sequel, Tears of the Kingdom, I'm not really impressed anymore with this level of graphics. The game looks exactly like the first game, it just looks like they copy and pasted it. The graphics have not improved at all, even though I'm playing on a Switch OLED, which is one of the latest versions of the Switch.
Oh my god, there is so much to dissect here. Well, my guy, there's multiple reasons for why these two games look the same. Let's get the art style one out of the way first. Who would have guessed that a direct sequel would share the same art style that the original did? Second of all, of course the graphics haven't improved at all. The Switch hardware is the exact same that it was 6 years ago. Yes, I understand they did like a refresh model in 2019 that had like a slightly more energy efficient chip or something, but none of the newer Switch models, including the Switch OLED or Switch Lite, are any more powerful than the first one. So of course, if the last Zelda game basically looked as good as it could on the hardware, the direct sequel on the same hardware is going to look the same. Now don't get me wrong, I am not defending Nintendo not upgrading their hardware or anything. It's absolutely time for a new Switch or a new system or something. But this whole point is like, yeah, no duh. Same art style, same hardware, of course it's gonna look the same. Why do you think the OG Modern Warfare's 1, 2, and 3 all looked really similar? They were the same series and they were all on the same console.
It looks exactly the same as the first game almost 6 years ago. I just find it kind of sad and disappointing that the game has made absolutely no graphical improvements after all of these years. And I guess it's not entirely the game's fault because Nintendo refuses to put out a Switch 2 or a Switch Pro which can handle better graphics. And this is kind of the limitations of the hardware. But come on, it's 2023 now and we have such amazing and powerful handheld devices such as the Steam Deck and the Neo 2, which can play AAA modern games with 720p and 60 FPS graphics, and this is just kind of lacking in luster for 2023. The graphics of Tears of the Kingdom look like they've been drawn by a 5-year-old using a crayon.
Okay, that's not true at all when it comes to the art style. I know that's extremely subjective, but come on, the game definitely does not look like it was drawn by a 5-year-old. Also, I find it very ironic that he's saying the Steam Deck is amazing when he's made multiple videos saying that you should not buy it. But I love how this guy immediately disproves his own point, where he's ragging on the game for not improving, and then he's like, oh yeah, but it's not the game's fault, it's the hardware. Congratulations, you played yourself. And again, I'm not defending Nintendo. I will absolutely agree that they definitely need to put out better hardware, especially since they're going to be charging $70 for games now, and they're still on hardware that isn't even up to the OG Xbox One. I just think it's funny how he makes a point and then immediately disproves himself.
The textures are just so low resolution, and the thing that I really dislike are the shadows. Even though they have dynamic lighting and the shadows move around as the sun sets and rises, the shadows just kind of flicker and they have this weird kind of vibrating effect, which looks really strange and jarring when you're looking at it. The draw distance is also kind of disappointing, but the art style of the game is okay, I guess, if you're into that anime kind of style.
Okay, wow, he actually said something else that I agree with. And yet again, this proves that Nintendo needs to move on from the Switch and either make a pro version or another console. Because yes, he's absolutely right, the shadows look really bad. The draw distances are very bad. Really, the only thing that saves this game from looking really bad all around is the really nice art style. Man, you know what? He's actually made some decent points so far. Let's see if that continues.
I have to say it is quite nice to hear a bit more voice acting in the game, but unfortunately Link still does not speak. I know it's part of his character that he doesn't speak, but I just find this kind of lazy writing. It's just like, oh, we're going to make this character not speak so we don't have to spend money on a voice actor. It's just kind of hard to connect and relate to the character Link when he doesn't really seem to have much or any personality.
Link being a silent protagonist is not lazy writing. He still does speak to the characters, it's just we don't hear it. I mean, I definitely won't deny the fact that it could be because Nintendo just wants to save money, but Link has always been a silent protagonist and he always will be. It just fits the character, and at this point it would be weird if he started talking. Like, imagine if they gave Kirby a voice. Hell, I'm pretty sure in that one, like, Kirby anime, they didn't give him a voice. There's just some characters that shouldn't have a voice, either because it wouldn't fit them, or because people are so accustomed to them not having a voice that giving them one would be really weird. But to say that Link doesn't have a personality, that is such a lie. You can absolutely have a silent protagonist who also has a personality. Good example, Doom Guy. He says what, like one sentence in the main story of Doom Eternal, and then like a single word throughout both of the DLCs, but yet he's still one of the most badass and beloved characters in shooters. Why? Because you can still have a personality and be a silent protagonist.
So as for the gameplay, not only are the graphics and the art style of the game exactly the same as the first game, also the gameplay and the combat mechanics and the system for fighting is basically exactly the same as Breath of the Wild. It's like they just basically copied and pasted Breath of the Wild. I don't even know why they call this a sequel. It's more like DLC of the first game.
Oh my god, here we go with this argument again. They didn't completely change up everything about the first game, DLC. You know what? The game takes like 45 to 50 hours to beat, but yeah, definitely DLC. Not every game sequel has to reinvent the wheel every single time, or completely switch up everything. There are some games where switching up art styles and the way mechanics work and stuff might work out. For example, Halo. But there's also games where, especially if they're going to be a direct sequel, keeping a lot of things the same isn't necessarily a bad thing. And the games don't deserve to be called DLC because of it. Think about it. Is anybody going to call Forza Horizon 5 DLC? And before somebody says, oh, well, they use a different map and location every single time. Yes, that is true, but think about it. With God of War Ragnarok, they opened up the rest of the realms that weren't available in the first game. And in Tears of the Kingdom, there's an entire sky area and underground area that wasn't there in Breath of the Wild. There's a fine line between a DLC and a sequel that is very similar to the original. A lot of the time, how I look at it is when it comes to how long the game is. Basically, if they make a whole new game that's extremely similar to the first one, but it's only like 10 to 15 hours long or something, then I would say that's basically a glorified DLC. That's why even though I love Spider-Man Miles Morales, I still call it a DLC. You pay like 50 or 60 bucks for the game, and I 100%ed the whole thing in like 12 hours. Granted, that's not Steam achievements, but what I mean is I've done every single map thing, like every district says 100% on it. Tears of the Kingdom is most certainly not a DLC.
So because in the beginning of the game you lose your sword because you get attacked by some big evil boss guy, you don't really have a weapon, so you have to pick up random objects in the world, like sticks and logs and anything you can find that's lying around. So you start off the game just whacking enemies with a stick, which is funny at first, but then gets very frustrating as your sticks keep breaking and you have to keep finding more sticks.
Finally, he said something I actually agree with again. And I think this might be the arguably biggest complaint from the first game, is this damn durability system, man. It's too short. I'm cool with durability systems in games. I mean, hell, my favorite game of all time is Minecraft. But at least in that game, you can swing your weapon for more than 5 seconds before it breaks. So, you know what? Yeah, I don't have a problem with this point. Very well played, sir.
The combat system is very basic and simple. Basically, all you do is target the enemy and then spam the attack button. There's no light attacks, heavy attacks, combos. There's no dodging or rolling like you'll find in Elden Ring or Dark Souls games. So don't expect any kind of in-depth combat system if you're used to playing Souls games. You can't even roll or dodge out of enemy attacks. You can jump and you can use your shield to block and you can do like a jumping attack. I just find the combat system to be way too simple. It's like an extremely simplified version of Elden Ring combat.
Okay, dude, now you're just straight up lying. There are absolutely light and heavy attacks, and there absolutely is dodging. Then again, I guess you're still stuck on the tutorial, so I guess you wouldn't really know that. But yes, there is light attacks, heavy attacks, and dodging. It might not be dodge rolling, but it's still dodging. You just have to lock onto an enemy and then jump backwards and you will dodge. But then again, if you're gonna quote-unquote play the game all day and still be in the tutorial, then I don't really know what I'm expecting. I guess the saying is true, expect the worst and you'll never be disappointed.
As someone who played a lot of Elden Ring and who was used to being able to mix and match different weapons and use all these different abilities, I just find the combat in Zelda Tears of the Kingdom to be sort of lacking in luster. The enemies are also kind of stupid. There's no tactics in terms of how they attack you. They just kind of randomly rush at you and then just stand around whilst they wait for you to attack them, and they don't really pose much of a threat. I also don't really like the type of enemies you'll find yourself fighting against most of the time. I enjoy fighting living creatures like humanoid enemies, and these enemies are almost entirely mechanical and robot style enemies.
Okay, first of all, that whole thing about the enemies just kind of waiting around for you to attack them, that's a lie. I can't tell you how many times I was playing Breath of the Wild and I'm just trying to mind my own business and I get randomly attacked by a group of enemies. Especially when you hear that music. God, what was that robot called? Where like when it targeted you, it played that music. God, that gave me anxiety. But my guy, if you're looking to fight like real living creatures instead of just robots, don't worry, Zelda has plenty of living enemies. It's not just robots. There are plenty of weird little like creatures and trolls and things for you to fight, and whatever the hell those really tall boys are called. But once again, you would know this if you got out of the tutorial.
I just find it a little bit boring fighting against these mindless, soulless robots. I know Nintendo chose this kind of enemy so that it's more child friendly and there's not blood flying everywhere and it's like things dying in pain. It's just like a robot that doesn't feel anything. So I guess I can understand why they chose robots, but as an adult player who likes to be mentally challenged with his video games, I don't really find this game combat very stimulating or engaging.
Because you haven't left the tutorial area and learned all the combat mechanics. If you're gonna make a video reviewing a game, at least get like an hour into it. Oh, but I'm sorry, you said you were playing all day, my bad. Yeah, by playing all day, this guy probably tied a rubber band to his controller and let Link run around in circles. But no, dude, again, they didn't choose robots because they wanted to like keep the children safe or anything. Robots are just a type of enemy in this game along with actual living creatures. I mean, hell, you want proof that Nintendo is okay with living things getting hurt in their games? Look at Mario. Pretty much every enemy you step on will be a living creature, excluding like the dry bones and the bullet bills and those guys. I don't know where you're getting this whole thing that Nintendo is afraid to like hurt living creatures or something, but I guess it does make my response to you much easier, so I guess keep it up.
You also have this device which is called a Pudra pad, which basically looks just like a switch. It's like he has a switch in the game, which is very strange because I always think of Zelda as a fantasy kind of game set a long time ago where they use bows and arrows and swords and they don't really have electricity, but now he has a Switch, which seems like it uses electricity and also has a camera built into it. So,
but it's not like an actual Switch. And also, this was in Breath of the Wild as well. And didn't you say you loved that game? So why are you complaining about that here? And again, it's not an actual Switch. It's not like you have to plug it in and charge it or something. It's not like you can play games on it. Sure, it looks like a Switch, but at the end of the day, it's just meant to act as a map and camera. I really don't see what the problem is here. I mean, didn't you say you really enjoyed Elden Ring as well? Elden Ring has tons of mechanical stuff that probably isn't even possible by today's standards. Just because it's a fantasy game doesn't mean they can't have technology. It's fantasy. It can be whatever you want. That's the whole point. Oh my god, please let this end.
And use it to set pinpoints and use it like a wayfinding device, which I really feel like it's kind of immersion breaking. I just found it so weird in the beginning of the game when Princess Zelda whips it out and starts taking photos with it like she's using a smartphone. So as in the same way as the first game, this game also features open world gameplay, which I'm kind of sick and tired at this point at Japanese game companies doing a really bad job at open world gameplay. Same thing happened with Pokemon Arceus or Arceus. They made this big open world which was very bland and boring and empty. It just had some random enemies scattered here and there. Same thing with Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. The open world is very bland and bleak and desolate and just feels kind of boring.
Didn't they like add 2 whole other areas to the game though? Wasn't that one of the things they were trying to counteract in this game was the bland open world? I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, because I remember the first Breath of the Wild had a relatively bland open world, but they added all those new areas for a reason, right? But on top of that, like, whoa, buddy, calm down. Why did this just get like the tiniest bit racist for a second? Those damn Japanese companies suck at open worlds. You do realize that Elden Ring was made by a Japanese company, correct? God, maybe I'm just overthinking this or something, but please, somebody tell me if you agree. Something felt very off about that statement.
So I'm trying to find my way to open this door, and it doesn't really tell me what to do or where to go. It just points me in a general direction saying, oh, if you want to open this door, maybe you should go to this glowing shrine thing over there that's floating up in the air. And it just kind of leaves you to figure out how to get there. And I don't really know what to do at this point because I'm just running around, hopping from island to island, trying to find out how to reach this glowing green thing. And every island I'm hopping around just has nothing on it. It just has like a few enemies, some trees you can chop down, some food you can gather, some wild animals you can hunt for meat. But apart from that, it just feels so empty and dull.
Okay. 2 things. First of all, earlier in this video, you said you wanted to be like intellectually stimulated or challenged or whatever by this game. But now you're complaining that it's not telling you exactly what to do and it's challenging you and letting you figure out something for yourself. Then immediately after he says, oh yeah, these islands are so boring and bland. You know, there's enemies, there's trees to cut down, food to gather, animals to hunt. But besides that, they're pretty bland and boring. Imagine if I said, oh yeah, you know, Tears of the Kingdom, it's a pretty short game. I mean, yeah, it's like 50 hours of main story, but besides that, it's a pretty short game. That doesn't make any sense. Okay, thank God we're almost done. I'm looking at my editing timeline. We have like a minute and a half left. If you guys can make it through this with me, I will love you forever.
Nearly 100% of the time you'll be doing exactly what you did in Breath of the Wild, which means chopping down trees, gathering wood, collecting food so you can cook it to make recipes and stuff that can help you later on in the game, and fighting random enemies using sticks and twigs and stuff like that. And then as you progress in the game, you'll unlock extra items and gadgets. So basically it's exactly the same kind of gameplay loop that you'll expect to find in the first game, and I'm really struggling to see what is new in this game apart from the fact that you're now up in the sky on these floating islands.
How about the fact that you can fuse objects together to make different weapons and vehicles? Or the new ability where you can just teleport through the ceilings of places? Or the new recall ability where you can make an object move in reverse? Or how about the fact that they've made changes to the already existing Breath of the Wild open world, and they've added the sky area and the underground area? Yeah, there's definitely no major changes to this game, alright?
As for the story of the game, I don't really feel like I'm engaged or hooked into finding out what happens in the story. It just seems like very typical Zelda game kind of story. You accidentally reawaken some evil guy at the bottom of some dungeon, and then Princess Zelda gets lost or kidnapped or taken away, and now you have to try and rescue her. How come in every single Zelda game you have to go and rescue Princess Zelda because she's completely useless at anything. And then you have to start at the beginning. Like, Link's either lost his memory or lost all of his abilities because he got weakened. And now you have to rebuild his strength and unlock all the stuff that he just lost.
I mean, I definitely will agree these games get very repetitive in terms of the premise. And the stories in Nintendo games are definitely nothing to, like, be proud of. That's never really been the focus. It's like Doom. Yes, they could improve the story, but at the end of the day, that's not really what the games are about. So yes, I guess this is valid criticism, but at the same time, the games just kind of wouldn't work if they didn't repeat the same story every time. So, I mean, what can you do? I'd rather have a fun game over a good story. Again, it's why Doom does so well despite not having the best story.
It's just really bland and predictable Japanese story writing. We all know what's going to happen. He's going to defeat the evil power, rescue Princess Zelda, and everything's going to be fine again, and they'll save the Kingdom of Hyrule from this ancient evil. It's just so predictable. I just don't really feel like I can even recommend the game at this point, especially for the price point. The game costs £60, which is like 75 US dollars, which is insanely expensive for basically what is essentially a copy and paste of Breath of the Wild.
Well, I'm glad that we could once again agree on something. There is no world in which this game should be charging $70. $70 for 720p 30 FPS is not acceptable. I understand the console is weak, but they should really just make a new console. At least Microsoft and Sony can make the argument of, oh, it's better hardware, so the games are bigger and better. For Nintendo, it's still the same old outdated Switch hardware. Nothing has changed at all. There is no reason to charge $70 besides just pure greed. So once again, you know what? Props to you, sir. You've earned a round of applause from me. You actually made another good point.
Which is now a 6-year-old game. I'm not really impressed that I had to pay so much money for basically just a copy and paste version of a very old game. So as of right now, unfortunately, I can't really recommend the game. I would wait until it comes down a bit in price, and I would have to give it a 6.2 out of 10.
Well, if you only played the tutorial and then called it mission accomplished, I can understand why you would be a bit upset about spending $70. But yeah, anyway guys, that's gonna do it for this video. Thank you all so much for watching. Basically, what we learned today is Tears of the Kingdom sucks because it's too similar to Breath of the Wild, even though they added a bunch of new stuff and it's a direct sequel, so of course a lot of things are gonna be similar. Now, to be fair, this guy did make some good points, but they were very, like, obvious, like, no duh good points. And the bad points far outweighed them. I mean, my guy was actually just straight up lying at certain points, which is not a good look. So yeah, with that being said, be sure to like the video if you liked it, dislike it if you didn't like it, subscribe if you want to see more, and I will catch you all next time.